It's strange, maybe even miraculous, when a dead body remains untouched by decomposition. But is there any truth to these claims? Here's the scoop on incorruptible saints and why some say their bodies have stood the test of time. Central to the Christian faith is the concept of mortality, the result of the original sin that transpired with Adam and Eve's fall in the Garden of Eden. To gain liberation from the sins of the Father visited on all descendants of Adam and Eve, early Christians believed Jesus Christ died on the cross and was resurrected on the third day. He represented both the ultimate sacrifice and the overthrower of original sin and death. Besides Jesus' miraculous resurrection, he also raised individuals from the dead during his lifetime, including Lazarus, who famously spent 3 days stinking up his tomb before Jesus transformed him into a living human being. For some early Christians, a natural extension of such miracles would be incorruptibility after death, a sign of holiness.
Bodies don't do that. So for someone's body to have done that must mean this was a special person.
A corpse must prove immune to the usual forces of putrefaction to meet the requirements of incorruptibility. This means the body must be in a natural state with no other explanation for the preservation, such as embalming or environmental conditions that arrest decay. In other words, bog bodies and naturally occurring mummies need not apply. According to Joan Carroll Cruz's The Incorruptibles, a distinction exists between miraculously preserved bodies and those that have accidentally or deliberately experienced arrested decay. For example, Smithsonian notes that the most famous artificially preserved bodies are ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Archaeologists believe the inspiration for Egyptian mummification came from finding bodies naturally preserved in Egypt's arid environment. But Egyptian mummies are a relatively late arrival on the scene. The oldest mummies in the world come from South America and date to over 7,000 years ago. Known as the mummies of Chinchorro, researchers believe they drew knowledge of cadaver preservation from naturally desiccated ancestral peoples in Chile's Atacama Desert. Similar conditions in northwestern China protected the 4,000-year-old Tarim mummies. In each of these cases, the lack of bodily decay can be explained. That's what sets incorruptibles apart from regular mummies. Natural phenomena can't always explain away these well-preserved remains. What's more, they display bizarre characteristics not present with mummies and other preserved cadavers. In Cruz's book, she notes their alleged lifelike appearances, flexibility and retention of blood and clear oils. Many also reportedly contain a sweet scent, defying normal decomposition processes. Instead, incorruptibility appears to usurp science and reality, with corpses arrested beyond physical decay. Early Christian groups concluded they represented miracles from God. Incorruptibility didn't have to last forever to catch the attention of church leaders. As Britannica notes, incorruptibility does not imply that the body cannot subsequently rot. In order for a body to be called incorruptible, supernatural preservation simply had to occur at some point in the corpse's purported history. This criterion worked for exceptionally preserved body parts, too. Incorruptibles often underwent treatments thought to help preserve what God had already done. These might include acid baths and encasement in wax effigies. When it came to body parts, they were displayed separately. For example, St. Vincent de Paul's heart or St. Anthony of Padua's jaw and tongue. Whether incorruptibility marked a miracle or not, the bodies and body parts of saints received great esteem from Eastern Orthodox and Catholic faithful. Even wear and tear didn't affect an incorruptible status because miracles didn't have to continue indefinitely for the body to be categorized as supernatural. According to Joan Carroll Cruz's The Incorruptibles, repairs took place as a matter of course. For example, Cruz notes work done on St. Rita's body over the years, including using string and wax to improve her appearance. The repairs were noted in medical investigations from 1743 and 1892, and church authorities took these treatments in stride as necessary upkeep for maintaining the treasure of reliquaries in tip-top shape. You may wonder how the faithful stumbled across bodies in arrested decay. Simply Catholic says the discovery stemmed from the process of canonizing saints, a lengthy procedure requiring exhumation of their bodies for several reasons. First, locating a potential saint's corpse assured church officials that the individual in question had lived. Second, it permitted relics associated with the saint to be discovered and distributed to various churches around the globe.
God likes to draw attention to his saints. God is a proud dad.
Remember that the official stance of both the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches was that even a saint's former belongings and remains could hold miraculous powers. But canonization for saints who had not faced martyrdom required clear evidence of post-mortem miracles, which meant having the saint's remains on hand. Third, locating the potential saint's body permitted proper enshrining in a chapel or church. During exhumations, church fathers sometimes happened upon shocking discoveries, namely bodies or body parts extraordinarily well preserved. As an increasing number of so-called incorruptibles came to light, some faithful were particularly swayed by this physical manifestation of the miraculous. Modern-day examples of this process at work include the candidacy for sainthood of Reverend Patrick Ryan by the Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul located in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Catholic news agency reports that Ryan's exhumation came with the discovery of relics, including vestments, a wooden crucifix, and a scapular thought to have been relocated along with his remains to the basilica, although no evidence of incorruptibility existed. The Catholic faith boasts dozens of so-called incorruptibles. Discover places the number around 100, noting more than half can be found in Italy. Other destinations for incorruptible sightseeing include Poland, Spain, France, Belgium, Austria, India, Germany, Lebanon, and Peru. The disparity in numbers of incorruptibles isn't surprising when you consider the modern aversion many feel toward them. According to Heather Pringle's The Mummy Congress, Science, Obsession, and the Everlasting Dead, many incorruptibles have been sadly forsaken over the years even by the faithful. So establishing an official count is impossible. To the most devout, however, incorruptibility represents a tangible display of divine intervention at work in the lives of God's faithful servants. Incorruptibles also are thought to perform miracles posthumously, especially healings. So the bodies of the most famed incorruptibles remain on display in churches and chapels worldwide, even as visitor numbers have dwindled over the centuries. Since the mid-20th century, the Catholic Church has called on science to better understand incorruptibles and aid in the preservation of contemporary figures' cadavers. In doing so, they've blurred the line between the supernatural and the scientific.
Has an ancient Catholic relic just given off a bad omen? That's what some church faithful believe in Naples, Italy.
Perhaps Ezio Fuccheri of the University of Genoa best articulates the Roman Catholic stance on incorruptibles today. In an interview with Discover, he argued, "What is a miracle? It's something unexplainable, a special event that may occur in different ways, but don't exclude rare natural processes that are different from the normal course of things." Like the Roman Catholic faith, the Eastern Orthodox Church doesn't require incorruptibility as a prerequisite for canonization as a saint, but it doesn't hurt either. Like the Catholic faith, incorruptibility is highly esteemed and associated with other miracles, including healings. The topic of incorruptibles is a sensitive one to the Eastern Orthodox Church, however. Although the Church greatly esteems relics declared miraculous, fragrant, and incorrupt, it gets more complicated when it comes to human bodies. Although an unnaturally preserved cadaver may point to holiness, it can also happen for less than savory reasons.
She's not in a refrigerated case. She is basically, for lack of a better term, shelf stable.
The Third Synod of Moscow from 1666 declares via the Church of the Genuine Orthodox Christians of America, "Let no one dare henceforth to honor and revere the bodies of the dead, which even in these times are found whole and incorrupt as being holy, without a credible witness and synodical approval." The statement goes on to argue that many undecayed bodies exist due to transgressions or loathing of church teachings. Other causes might include getting cursed by a priest or bishop, or even excommunication.
We declare him excommunicate and anathema. We cast him into the outer darkness.
Kind of like the scene in Bram Stoker's Dracula where Vlad renounces God and becomes a monstrously preserved immortal. During the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, communists stormed the ancient churches of the Eastern Orthodox faith, pulling incorruptibles and relics from display cases. The Bolsheviks laid waste to long-held religious beliefs through rampant, indiscriminate desecration. Then, in language rife with propaganda, they claimed the so-called miraculously preserved bodies were all wax figures. Of course, this message suited their need to neutralize the so-called opium of the people, as Karl Marx called religion. Bolsheviks weren't the only ones with a beef against incorruptibles. Writing for the Herald, Bill Bain refers to them as hamburgers of religious delusion. The hamburger part references urban legends about McDonald's Happy Meals that go for years unrefrigerated without a spot of mold. He argues in his piece, "A recent U.S. scientific study into fast food's mysterious ambivalence to nature concluded that the key to durable physicality wasn't any Judeo-Christian sky spy, creepy chemical, or powdered preservative, but simply a lack of moisture in specific atmospheric conditions." Bain points to various explanations for incorruptibles such as airtight coffins built from lead and zinc, burial in above-ground crypts, and undocumented embalming. What's more, How Stuff Works points out that some alleged incorruptibles have proven fraudulent. A shift in the Catholic Church over the past few decades moved to examine incorruptibles more scientifically. This move hopes to bring about a better understanding of the phenomenon. One scientist at the spear point to this research is Ezio Fuccheri at the University of Genoa. Instead of incorruptibles, he prefers to refer to them as the mummies of saints. A devout Catholic, Fuccheri has even been called in by the Vatican to preserve the corpses of modern-day individuals awaiting canonization. The Vatican no longer lists incorruptibility among its official miracles. What's more, the Roman Catholic Church has admitted that that in some cases, bodies received help from the environment, although there is still the claim that God engineered that perfect environment. Most famously, Cardinal Prospero Lorenzo Lambertini, the guy who snagged the title Pope Benedict XIV, was a proponent of using medical science to analyze supposed cases of incorruptibility objectively.
The body could be perfectly preserved except for the nose and the lips, and he says that's out. It's not considered a miracle.
Known as the Enlightenment Pope, he concluded in his text on the beatification and canonization of saints that most mummies of saints had natural rather than supernatural explanations. Among the media most effectively used to preserve incorruptibles is wax. Artists have used it to great success in maintaining reliquaries. Consider the case of Saint Bernadette. After dying on April 16, 1879, her canonization process involved 3 medical examinations in 1909, 1919, and 1925. After her final exhumation, officials placed a thin layer of wax over her face and hands, and a famed fashion mannequin maker in Paris named Pierre Imond designed the wax prosthetics. The wax fixed a few unsightly details noted in her third exhumation, including a blackish skin tinge. It also improved her nose, described as dilated and shrunken, as early as her first examination. Church records show that Bernadette's body remained mostly incorrupt at its first exhumation, but afterward, nuns washed her body, likely contributing to the noticeable decay and mold noted at the second and third check-ins. Atlas Obscura reports the Blessed Anna Maria Taigi can still be seen in San Crisagno, Rome, today. You can attribute her lifelike appearance to wax portraiture over bone, and no one can deny the doll-like appeal of St. Victoria, constructed around a skeleton of a catacomb martyr with cutaways revealing her relics, aka bones. Separating the wax from reality proves difficult with St. Sylvan. Martyred in the 5th century, he lies in a state of peaceful repose in Dubrovnik, Croatia. Considering his great age, we're guessing he's more wax than not. Although saints like Bernadette and Anna Maria Taigi have gotten a little help from wax over the years, it's generally accepted their bodies were once incorrupt without any explanation. That means they didn't have the benefit of embalming or conditions specifically favorable to fleshy preservation. But not all mummies of saints fit this bill. As the Roman Catholic Church actively encouraged the scientific examination of its many reliquaries, some researchers found this out firsthand. As scientists opened glass coffins and peeled back layers of clothing with care, it quickly became evident the followers of these saints had embalmed them to make a better case for canonization. For example, when University of Genoa researcher Ezio Fuccheri examined the body of Margaret of Cortona, he found several long incisions streaking her thighs. He also noted deeper cuts in her chest and abdomen that had been stitched together post-mortem. Pringle writes in her book, "Those who preserved St. Margaret had done so remarkably thoroughly, excising her internal organs and drenching her skin in fragrant lotions." Besides Margaret of Cortona, saints embalmed by their followers include Clare of Montefalco, Blessed Margaret of Castello, Catherine of Siena, Rita of Cascia, and Bernardine of Siena. Like Margaret, they bear obvious signs of embalming, organ removal, post-mortem incisions, and stitching. All of these so-called incorruptibles date to the period between 1297 and 1447, and all were mystics with devoted followings. Unlike most of the incorruptibles who at one point or another had a little cosmetic work done, if not full embalming, St. Zita remains a fascinating mystery, according to Heather Pringle's The Mummy Congress. Located in a side chapel in the San Frediano Basilica, her body lays on a brocade bed, and she's viewable through a glass shrine. Pringle described seeing her more than 700-year-old cadaver this way. Her gaunt face was smooth and her hands soft and supple-looking. Her lustrous nails gleamed. When examined by researchers, they found no signs of human tampering to preserve the saint's body. Scans confirmed the presence of all her organs, and researchers found no signs of incisions. No resins or unguents were detected on her skin, making her incredible preservation inexplicable. Other saints that fall into this category include Ubald of Gubbio, Blessed Margaret of Savoy, and Saint Savina Petrilli. After examining Zita, Ezio Fuccheri had no explanation other than environmental factors. He hypothesizes that Zita's entombing in burial vaults beneath church floors may have something to do with their frozen-in-time features today. Making a pilgrimage to see a saint's body isn't always possible. For example, visiting St. Francis Xavier's mummy requires a trip to Goa, India, so sacred body parts represent the next best thing. Notably, Francis Xavier's 465-year-old preserved arm sometimes travels. In 2018, it made a whirlwind tour of Canada.
It's more than just reading about him. It's something that's still physically present. Like it's literally his arm.
Another body part honorable mention is St. Anthony's tongue. After the popular saint died in 1231 of edema, his body decayed, which church officials realized during his first exhumation in 1263. Oddly enough, though, his tongue looked totally fine and proved flexible and wet. as if the famed church orator were about to take another stab at it. Church leaders soon declared the tongue preserved because of his perfect teachings, and today the saint's tongue and lower jawbone rest in elaborate gold reliquaries at the Basilica of St. Anthony in Padua, Italy. Another saint whose corporeal preservation proved hit or miss, Vincent de Paul's heart, is about all we have left from the man except for a pile of bones. The skeleton now sits beneath exquisitely sculpted layers of wax, giving him a lifelike appearance, and a golden reliquary at the Sisters of Charity in Paris houses his heart. Naysayers have plenty of criticism for macabre relics. One of their most compelling stances deals with individuals who are well preserved but were less than saintly. These include the Italian Archbishop Cardinal Schuster, whose corpse proved incorrupt 31 years after death, yet he had a reputation as a fascist and bosom buddy of Benito Mussolini. Some people think that's more than enough reason for his corpse to decay. There's also Rosalia Lombardo of Sicily, who perished as a toddler. Her heartbroken father hired the best embalmer money could buy, worth every penny. The embalming process left her astonishingly lifelike. Housed in the Capuchin catacombs of Palermo, Sicily, the haunting appearance of this little sleeping beauty draws visitors from all over the world. And we can't forget about individuals like the Iron Age Toland man, found in Denmark's Silkeborg bog in 1950. His body looks so fresh that his discoverers thought they'd stumbled across a contemporary murder scene. But as they examined the corpse, they realized that from his head to his toes, the man embodied a time capsule, one that dated between 375 and 210 BC.
This may be a murder case, but it's a very cold one, so you need an archaeologist, not the police.
His perfect preservation, which includes bodily organs, resulted from the unique environmental factors of the bog, including a lack of oxygen, a dearth of bacteria, and cool temperatures year-round. While his remains would be the envy of any wannabe saint, his pagan lifestyle breaks the canonization mold. Modern-day attempts to preserve the bodies of saints, both past and present, have come at the ultimate cost. A team of researchers assembled by the Vatican in the 1970s to improve upon the mummification process worked with such dangerous chemicals that all but one member died from cancer, and understandably, no one has the nerve to continue their work. From 1975 to 2008, the team preserved 31 bodies of saints beatified and servants of God. They worked on everything from centuries-old mummies of saints to specific body parts and have battled to beat decomposition. But their struggle against the forces of nature backfired as team members soon started dropping like flies. The team included anthropologists, radiologists, medical surgeons, pathologists, and microbiologists. Yet stunningly, they failed to recognize the danger they faced. The preservation of Pope John XXIII's corpse attests to their meticulous skill. To retain his incorruptibility, the team suspended his body for months at a time in baths of various chemicals, including methanol, ethanol, camphor, phenol, nitrobenzene, benzoic acid, and even turpentine. They bandaged him in linen soaked in ethanol and mercury bichloride and finished with a thin wax mask for good measure. But working with such dangerous chemicals proved fatal, a shocking price to pay for corporeal immortality.